Welcome back to the Hangar, everybody. This is episode 7 of the Hangar Podcast with me, Miguel Navarro, and my boy, Luke Steinman. Luke, how are we feeling?
We're feeling great. Every day we're getting closer to baseball games. I'm excited. I'm finally going to see a baseball game. Going to spring training this weekend. I'm excited. It's supposed to rain. I hope it doesn't rain because I really want to go see some of the young guys, especially the Mariners, top farm system in the game. A lot of exciting young players to go see. So
Luke will be at spring training for the Dodgers Mariner game. Luke, representing the Hangar Podcast out there. Do us proud.
Yes,
I know just before we get into it, I know you've been taking up photography, bro.
Yes, sir.
Like, that's a perfect place to take pictures. Some of the most beautiful scenes this spring training. It's going to be awesome, bro.
On those high school fields, I can't wait to take photos.
Those are going to be sweet, bro.
I think I'm going to wear that Julio jersey, and then just for you, I'm going to wear this Dodger hat too.
Oh my God, dude, you're pulling a Zach Campbell over here. Pulling a Zach.
I know. I should do the Rob Lowe where you pulled up with the NFL hat that one game.
All right, bro. That's good. But you know what? We got to get to business, Luke. And this is part 2 of our 6-part series where we're going to be breaking down every single division in baseball. Today, we did the NL West last time. We're doing the NL Central today. Now, Luke, if I'm being honest, quick introduction to this division. This division is really the most unpredictable division in baseball. I feel like it really could go either way for all 5 teams. Like, all 5 teams have that. There's a reality where all 5 teams have a chance to win the division. Like, it's crazy. Maybe the Pirates are a little bit farther off than other teams. So the way we do this is we go off the standings from last year. And we're going to be going from 5-1 from last year. The first team we're going to be discussing today is the Pittsburgh Pirates, who went 76-86 last year, Luke. Their offseason, it's pretty much what you would expect from the Pittsburgh Pirates. And this is a team I'm going to be very hard on because before we get into their additions, subtractions, they have all the talent in the world pitching-wise. It's a great run team in that aspect. For this year, though, they brought in Andrew McCutchen, re-signed him. In a 3-team trade, they brought in first baseman Spencer Horwitz. They also signed Tommy Pham, Andrew Heaney, Adam Frazier, Caleb Ferguson, Tim Meza on 1-year deals. Those were pretty much their big moves. Their subtractions, they lost the role to Chapman to free agency to Boston. They traded Luis L. Ortiz to the Guardians. And they also lost Brian De La Cruz and Connor Joe and Michael A. Taylor, who were pretty much 3 starters for them last year. Not a lot of big moves, a lot of smaller moves. They made a lot of 1-year acquisitions, which, in my opinion, there's no such thing as a bad 1-year deal. So that could work out for the Pirates in a good way. But look, what do you have on their statistics from the 2024 season?
Just before I get to the stats, I want to talk about some of the acquisitions they made. I really like the trade they did with the Guardians to get Spencer Horwitz.
Guy raked last year.
Guy raked. He was literally he was like the second best offensive player that the Blue Jays had. They had a really bad year with the Blue Jays, but he was one of the main staples on offense who was able to keep them afloat. And then trading away from the depth that they have, like with their farm system, they do have a lot of good pitching. And so being able to give away a Luis Ortiz, who's projected to be a good pitcher, and I think he will be a good pitcher, and it doesn't hurt them. It actually helps them because they need more bats.
Right.
As we go into the stats for this year, we can see their offense was really bad this year. They were bottom 5 in pretty much every category offensively besides stolen bases. But their pitching was their bright spot, mainly highlighted by having Paul Skeens, one of the best pitchers in baseball. They were 15th in ERA, 18th in WHIP, 10th in walks per 9, 24th in Ks per 9. And their bullpen just was a lot worse. 27th in ERA, 28 in WHIP, 25 in walks per 9, 16 to K per 9. Like, this was not a great unit all around. Besides Paul Skeens, and then of course a good first half from Mitch Keller, which he's done the past 2 years. So they went and tried their best to go attack the offense this offseason with getting Spencer Horwitz and a few small additions. But again, it's gonna be a rough year for Pirates fans once again.
It's gonna be rough. The reason I kind of led with there's a world where any of these teams could win the division, including the Pirates, even though it's pretty much a long shot. I think there's a world, though, where the NL Central does NL Central things, there's just a lot of chaos. There's just a lot of uncertainty in this division. And the Pirates, their team is led by their pitching. They're going to live and die by it. And that's another reason I'm very upset with them. They have Paul Skeens, Lucas. Paul Skeens is one of the most talented pitchers of our generation. And then you pair him with a solid guy like Mitch Keller, who's pretty much going to give you 170 plus innings a year, like solid numbers, like it's nothing special. And then they have Jared Jones. Jared Jones is another guy that I expect to take off this year. I think he's got some of the best strikeout stuff in the league. And they go out, they're pretty high on Braden Bailey Falter. I know that they have some hopes for him to actually put together a pretty solid year. And then Andrew Heaney, he's done that for what? Going on a decade now, Andrew Heaney's been in the league. They bring in a vet. That's a solid, I wouldn't say a really good rotation, but it's a nice, solid rotation. It's pretty top heavy, but when your top heavy is Paul Skeens, probably the best pitcher in the world right now, it's a great position to be in. But you look at that offense, man, it's not anything to be excited about. O'Neal Cruz, I think Joey Bart, there's a world where he could put them things together.
Also, sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you, but before we leave the pitching part, I also want to include Bubba Chandler, right. their top prospect and the 15th best prospect in the game right now. He is a nasty pitcher, and he's gonna slot in well. Like, I think they're gonna probably call him up in like a month or two. Like, he's not gonna be in the minor leagues long. I think kind of like the same expectancy of what they did with Paul Skeens. Like, they gave him a month.
I don't know. Also, are they gonna be using Roansy Contreras? I know that he was up there at some point last year, I want to say.
I'm not sure.
They just, it feels like they have a surplus of young arms like that. There's a lot of guys with potential on this team. There's not a lot of guys that have really, been there, done that, especially in October. But I like the team pitching wise. I think that they have a solid foundation. Obviously, Paul Skeens he's Paul Skeens, bro. Like, I think we just don't even talk about how good this guy is. This guy is literally the best pitcher in the game. He hasn't even pitched the full season yet. Think about the numbers he had last year. He had a 4.3 WAR, a 1.9 ERA, and 133 innings. Luke, do you like his strikeout case per 9 was 11.5? Like, this guy has the best stuff in the game. And I kind of want to talk about Paul Skeens. Now that we're on Paul Skeens, I have a question for you regarding him. Is there a world where if this guy is putting together 180 to 200 innings, like, could we be talking about a 300 strikeout season? Like, is he that good?
I mean, his ceiling is like that. I mean, if he can pitch a full season to that extent, and I know this offseason he's developed a few more pitches. He wants to change the approach a little bit to, like, he wants to get deeper into games. He doesn't want to be like a 5-inning guy. Like, he wants to go like deep into games, like 6-7 innings. I think he has the capability to do that. And if he's able to do that over the full season, like staying healthy, getting to like that 180, 190 inning mark, like, I could totally see a world where he could get 300 strikeouts.
Just his
which is
ceiling
ridiculous.
Is so high, man. Like, I think any ceiling you place on Paul Skeens, there's potential for him to even break through that. Like, that's just how good he is. His mechanics, so beautiful. Like, I'm glazing, man. But I love me some Paul Skeens highlights. Like, guy's a freaking monster. And I've been hearing he's throwing like a cutter now. Like, geez, dude. Oh my God. Like,
I saw footage of it. It's crazy. Like, he's just one of those guys that you just pick up a pitch and it's just really good. Like, off the bat, like, he just picks it up and, I have another arsenal to that, another plus pitch to my arsenal, which is nuts. And I know we're talking about like pitching and stuff, and I want also like include like Bubba Chandler. Like, this rotation has a chance to be like one of the top rotations in baseball, like a top 10 rotation in baseball, and could be, I think, maybe like the second best like rotation in this division. And with a pitching staff like that, you're always excited, and you could always bank on your team improving and being better. And they're just a fun, young, exciting team off like just pitching wise, and let's see how far I can take them. But going back to their offense, it's not going to be good. They have a few, like we're talking about, a few bright spots like O'Neal Cruz, but then also question marks for him. Like, he's doing a different position he's never done before, playing center, and it'll be interesting to see. He has injury problems.
I remember he played a little bit of center last year. I think he was pretty solid. I want to say he was pretty decent out there.
It was okay, but like it was pretty good. But also like he has injury history, and you have Ryan Reynolds in a corner outfield for you, and he is terrible at left field. So he's pretty much got to take over two like like a huge chunk of the outfield now because Brian Reynolds is just a stone out there.
Yeah.
It's a stone. It's a lot to take on as like a new center fielder. But I mean, of course, he's like one of the most athletically gifted players in the sport right now. So if anyone can do it, it's him. I'm just worried about the injury history with him and just what that could look like.
Yeah, I completely agree. And honestly, Luke, I'm looking at this lineup right now, like Tommy Pham. Mm-hmm. I think we could pretty much bet on him being traded by the deadline. He'll end up on a playoff team somehow, like he does every single year.
Every time.
Like Brian Reynolds, guy's a stud. They locked him up, but like he said, defensively, really not there. He's going to be the center of that offense, and it's not I wouldn't say it's a bad thing to have a Brian Reynolds, but let's be honest, man. If Brian Reynolds is really that key number one of your lineup, I'm not too high on the lineup. I think O'Neal Cruz, he's shown flashes of being a stud, and I think I've almost seen like Elly De La Cruz just outshine him. It's like we forgot about O'Neal Cruz. O'Neal Cruz came up first, and when he came up, he was getting that Elly treatment, and then Elly just said, "Sorry, buddy, take a step to the side." But a full year of him in center, we'll see what that happens. Andrew McCutchen, it just seems like they're just giving him contracts because he's Andrew McCutchen, like, whatever. I don't care about at all. A guy I think I'm interested in, Joey Bart hit 13 home runs last year. His average was a lot better. He was putting the ball in play at a much higher rate than we were used to. When he was on the Giants, I remember this guy was just literally a strikeout machine. And in 282 at-bats last year, he actually showed promise. His slug was, like, really good. Really good slug. I mean, that's kind of been the story of Joey Bart. Like, the guy can mash, but can he do it consistently? I think there's some upside for Joey Bart. But then, like, I just look at the rest of the lineup. Nick Gonzalez, I mean, nothing exciting. Isaiah Kiner-Falefa, I don't care. And a guy I kind of want to highlight right now is Ke'Bryan Hayes, Luke, is, like, about to be 30 years old, I want to say. Like, it's never felt like this guy's been able to, be the guy that they really thought he was, like defensively superstar, but the bat has never come around, and it just feels like they've hit a rock in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, he's one of the guys that's been on my radar like the past few years. I'm just like, all right, this is the year for Ke'Bryan Hayes. He's gonna break out this year. I wanted it so bad, and last year that was like the last year for me. Like, I've done fantasy baseball the past 2 years, and I picked him up both times because I'm like, all right, man, this is the year. Like, they're not expecting he's gonna pop off. Like, no, he hasn't. And it's just like he had just like no power in his bat at all. Like, he had there was nothing. Like, I think there was like maybe like a 2-week stretch where he was like good, and then after that he was just really bad. Like, it's just like you said, it gets to a point where he's 28 now. Like, this should be your prime of your career. Like, you should like, again, like, he's still gonna have value to his team because he's probably the best defensive third baseman in baseball right now. Like, that alone will carry you enough. But like, you need to be a better hitter. But also, I want to touch back on, you brought up Nick Gonzalez. I actually am kind of high on I'm high on him. I think he's going to be good this year. Last year he hit 270, 311, and 398 with a 94 WRC plus. Not too bad. It was his rookie season. Not bad for playing in Pittsburgh, like being in that lineup. I think hitting 270 is good. Having a strikeout rate under 20% is good too, and I think just another year in this system, and he's just one of the guys. He's just one of the guys in this offense I think is going to take a step forward into this lineup. He was one of the guys this offseason I was hoping the Mariners would get because I thought they were going to move stuff around, and he might have been available, but ended up not being available. And of course, Mariners didn't make a move anyway. But this is a guy I like, and I think this year I'm going to try to pick a player from each division, or like a team that I think is going to be good this season.
I like that.
And I think Nick Gonzalez is going to be
Nick Gonzalez, your guy.
Team.
I'm going to follow up on that. I'm really high on Jared Jones. I think he's got some of the best stuff. That's kind of my guy. I expect to have a big boost for the Pirates. Before we move on, I kind of want to end on this. Something that the Pirates did set themselves up for in this off season. They signed a lot of 1-year deals. Like, there's a world where they can move a lot of these guys for some prospects that might eventually pan into something. Like Andrew Heaney might be moved. McCutchen even. Like, there's just a lot of 1-year guys. So that's something good they did. If you're not going to go out and spend money, at least try to set yourself up for the future. Yeah. Like I said, though, this offense is not going to be good. But moving on, 4th place, and this is a team I'm really excited to talk about. I think I'm very high on. the Cincinnati Reds. They finished 77-85 last year, but they actually had a pretty promising offseason. You know, they go out, they brought back Nick Martinez, who was a really good starter for them last year. They brought in Brady Singer in a trade where they traded Jonathan India. They also traded for Gavin Lux. They brought in Taylor Rogers, who was a really good year for the Giants last year. They brought in Austin Hayes. They brought in Wade Miley on a minor league contract. They traded for Jose Trevino, and they also brought in Scott Barlow, another reliever. Subtractions, they lost Justin Wilson, Jonathan India, Ty France, Ahmed Rosario, Jacob Junis, and Joey Weimer. Those were their moves. I think the big fish that they got was Brady Singer, right? Like this is a guy that we've been kind of banking on a big breakout for, but he's been pretty solid besides that. And then also bringing in Gavin Lux. Like, I think they made solid moves and to add to an already pretty talented roster. I liked it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do. I really like to get for Brady Singer. They really needed a guy that could just eat innings for them. Like last year, their big demise was like health issues, and they really attacked it this offseason. And like one example is getting a guy like Brady Singer who's gonna give you a lot of innings. He had, how many innings did he have last year? He had 179, 150, 59 the year before, 153 the year before. Like, this dude is going to give you at least 150 innings. I only think they had one guy last year give him any number like in the like mid 100s. So it's the guy they need. And then also he had a pretty good year last year. Like, he had like a 3.7 ERA, like 2.5 WAR. Like that's pretty good for him. And he's just a nice middle of rotation guy. And I'm really high on this team this year. Like you were saying it too. Like, this is one of your teams that you like. And I think a big part of this is the pitching staff. Like, they got better this offseason, East season pitching wise, and they have so much depth behind it. Like, they have a guy like Hunter Green, who took a huge step forward last year and is an ace. Now you have a guy like Brady Singer in there, Nick Lodolo. You're hoping for a bounce back year. And then a decent 4 and 5 and Nick Martinez and Andrew Abbott. That's a pretty good end of your rotation. And then also I want to include two top prospects that they have. The 26th ranked prospect Chase Burns, and then 35th Brett Lauder, both projected to be in the MLB this year. They're gonna be good, and I expect with that mix that this pitching staff is gonna be really good and fun.
That's 7 solid arms, man. Like, that's something to be happy about.
Especially like I said, like, they had a lot of injuries last year, and getting a bunch of depth like that, and then also attacking their depth, they got a guy like you said, Gavin Lux, a guy who could play every position you need. He's gonna play. He's their projected third baseman, I think, right now. He could play second. Could play corner outfield spot. They need depth for this team, and they really attacked it this offseason, and I'm excited to see what they can do this year.
Yeah, I think that they saw big years from a guy like Ellie. Like, Ellie kind of took that step forward. Matt McClain missed a year, but before that, this guy was like a legit kind of up-and-coming star in the league. They got Jake Fraley, who actually put up pretty good numbers for them last year. And then you've paired it with Gavin Lux. You know, you brought in like a Austin Hayes, and Austin Hayes was starting outfielder for a number 1 seed a couple years ago. Like, this guy was, he was out there. He was on the field. And then Heimer Caldalero, he had a down year last year, but he not too long ago was good. And I like some of their pieces in their lineup is pretty much what I'm saying. Like, even Will Benson, look at the frame on Will Benson. Like, that guy, if he can just figure out, like, dude, I went to a game last year, Dodger Reds, and he hit a ball off Tyler Glasnow, one of the hardest and loudest sounding balls I've ever, like, experienced live. Like, who's to say that guy can't just say, I'm gonna do that consistently now? Like, it's crazy. Like, something like having upside in guys like that. If you're gonna have guys that don't produce, at least let them have potential. And I think that they have a lot of guys like that, where they have a lot of potential, and I'm really, really excited about their pitching staff. I kind of want to piggyback off the Pirates on this. Am I crazy for kind of liking the Reds rotation more than the Pirates? Like, I like their core guys.
I like the Pirates better. I think their ceiling is way higher. I think with as Paul Skeens alone it sets you apart differently. But then also like Bubba Chandler. And then your Mitch Keller or Jared Jones is your 3 and 4. Yeah. Like, the Reds could have the potential maybe in the future if Chase Burns and Brett Lauder like perform what they're going to do. But I think coming into this next year, you have guys that have pitched here and have been solid. And I think you can like bounce. I think you can rely more on that, especially with pitching being so weird and different.
Yeah, that's crazy. But I want to kind of make this point. Rhett Lauder was like, what, 2 years ago now? Rhett Lauder was going toe to toe with Paul Skeens in that college baseball World Series. Like, like Rhett Lauder was literally like right there with Paul Skeens. Granted, it could have been just for that one game, and I'm not saying Rhett Lauder's anywhere near Paul Skeens' level, but like you have guys that really have a lot of potential. I really like Rhett Lauder. I think he's got really good stuff. He's got a big, lengthy arm slot. And another point of this team I want to highlight is I kind of don't hate their bullpen either, Luke. Like I think Ashcraft moving to the bullpen is going to be nice for him. Scott Barlow, like he's always put together pretty solid years for the Royals. And then you have Alexis Diaz, Emilio Pagan, and then Taylor Rogers had a very underrated season last year. Like it's pretty like those are 5 or 6 quality names in their bullpen.
And then also like pitching, like being like a good bullpen is very dependent on like your pitching staff. And like you said, they were hurt last year. And once you get a healthy rotation in that's going to be able to actually go 5-6 innings into a game, it makes it so much easier for a bullpen. Because if your bullpen's going to have to go out every day and take it from like the 4th inning, like that's going to wear you out. And so being able to have a rotation like that's going to establish itself, get you 5 innings, like at least a game, that makes it so much easier on a bullpen, especially the one that like is kind of more top heavy, that they have a lot more guys on the top. Like I really like Alexis Diaz. Like it makes it easier for them to go through a full season and also just to produce in general. And then also I want to talk a little bit about the offense. Elly De La Cruz, I think he was insane last year. Big breakout. I expect even a bigger breakout this year. I think he's going to be a top 5 player in baseball this season. And then with a player like that, with so much impact on the game, like just not even with his bat, but with being able to steal bags, play some of the best defensive baseball in the game, like just giving him a supporting cast of just like at least league average players and just like the guys with high upside, like that's an exciting, fun offense to watch. And I'm really high on Matt McClain too. Like I know he was injured last year. Like I know you pointed it out. Like he's gonna have a really good year this year. Like you point out, like Austin Hayes again. Like that dude was in like a
league average guys, man. Like you just put together a good amount of these solid players. It's almost like you convince yourself when you throw together a solid team on paper. You kind of look at it and you're like, you know what? Maybe they get hot at the right time, and maybe the rest of the teams in their division struggle. And like, you know what? There's a world where they're competing for the playoffs. I think like the point you made about Elly, completely right. I think he's going to be in the MVP conversation. This guy hit what? He like 20 something homers and he stole like 60 bases. Who's to say he can't do 40 and 80 this year? Like crazy. Guy's talented. Guy's got all the talent in the world. I kind of want to bring up my negative for this team. My negative for the Pirates was I don't like their offense. And every part of this team the Reds have right now, I kind of like. But I think that the Reds are just lacking like that one more big bat. And I don't think their offense is going to be able to carry them all the way through this season. I think they're maybe a year or two away. But like we've been saying, they have all these young prospects coming up. All their main core guys are pretty young and locked up for the future, for the foreseeable future. I think the Reds are building something nice. They're actually willing to make moves in the offseason, which is just a big thing and something that we love on this show. Overall, maybe right now might not be the time, but the Reds are building towards something. I'm excited. I'm very excited for them.
I can't wait. They're gonna be one of the teams I'm really gonna like watch this season. I think I'm gonna find myself watching a lot.
They're gonna be exciting. They're always exciting, man. When Ellie's stealing bases, and it's like fun, man. It's a lot of fun. All right, moving on now to the 3rd place team. We're gonna be talking about the St. Louis Cardinals, Lucas. They tied actually with the Cubs last year for 2nd place, but if we're being honest, the Cardinals, we're not expecting much for it, and we would rather talk about the Cubs later. It's pretty much the decision that we've made from this. Like I think that the Cardinals really haven't done much to be able to be competitive. They really didn't make any moves, and you know what's crazy, Luke? I go over to their notable acquisitions, and guess what I see?
None.
Big fat donut. Lucas, how do you go 83 and 79 and just say, no, we're good. We're good. We're okay to suck this year.
Well, I like to point out, I hate it. Ownership is always a big thing in baseball. The owner wants to shed payroll. They don't want to spend money. So they're not. So they're trying to get rid of people. That was a big thing this offseason. They're just trying to offload people. Like they got rid of like Paul Goldschmidt, but the one they tried to get rid of like two was like they tried to get rid of Nolan Arenado. They tried to get rid of Ryan Helsley. They tried to get rid of Sonny Gray, but he has no trade clause he activated, so they couldn't get rid of him. Like this is a team that's gonna sell everything by the deadline, and they're just a team that's just like, and they hired the GM. I forget his name. He was with the Red Sox a few years back. He's the one. He's really good at taking down a team and building up a good farm system. He did it with the Red Sox. Yeah, I think it's his name. Yeah. That's why the Red Sox right now have one of the best prospects like systems in baseball is because of him. He's a guy I like as well, and I think, and like they are doing that, but they also do have like a lot of good like bright spots on this team, like a Mason Wynn, a Jordan Walker, Eric Fetty. No, that's not the name at all. He's 32. Sorry, my bad. But like they have like they have like some exciting like points in this team, but they're gonna be a team that's like they're gonna sell everything at the deadline.
I think I expect them to take a big step back this year, man. Honestly, like they didn't do much or anything in the offseason. They lost Paul Goldschmidt. Granted, Paul Goldschmidt didn't have a crazy good year, right? But it's still Paul Goldschmidt. That presence is still in that lineup. Like that's a respected guy. Like when you're scouting for a team, you're still considering Paul Goldschmidt because he's been there and he's done that for so long, right? And I like some of their guys. Like I'm just kind of going off who I think could be decent, like Mason Wynn. Guy is a hit machine. I didn't realize he had that in him. Brandon Donovan showed pretty good signs of like actually being able to hit last year. Like he was actually a nice number 2 hole for them. And Wilson Contreras, we'll see what we get out of him, but he's obviously been in the big games. He's been fine. Alec Burleson's had his moments throughout his career. Last year, I mean, it wasn't anything special, but like he's still in that lineup. He's still producing 20 plus homers. And then you finish it up with like an Arenado, a Lars Nootbaar, and then it kind of gets to the question marks. What are we getting out of Jordan Walker? What are we getting out of Nolan Gorman? And what are we getting out of Ivan Herrera? That bottom 3 is kind of it could be an X factor for them, but it's really a big question mark.
I forgot. I just spaced out you when you said the name Ivan Herrera. I'm excited for him. He showed flashes of being like pretty good at the end of the season. Like they moved like
Contreras to first.
They moved Contreras to first for him to take over catching, and I think that's going to be a great move for both of them because I don't have the stats in front of me, but I heard I'm a big fan of the Jets Baseball podcast. They talked about William Contreras moving to first, and they pointed out his stats when he was a DH only, like he's not catching, and his hitting stats are like way better, and it's like one of the best like first basemen in baseball. So that's gonna be exciting to see just a full year of just pretty much just mashing, which is what he's best at. And then Ivan Herrera is gonna be a good defensive catcher, good young guy, see what they can do. But my really big thing this year for the Cardinals, can you just let Jordan Walker cook? Can you just let him? Can you just like I get it, like sometimes he struggles, like that's what prospects do, but you can't pull him up and down just on a whim, like blah,
just
blah, blah.
Give him the reins.
You need to give him like runway, and especially with, like this year, they're not going to be competitive. Like they're not going to win this division, I don't think at all. Like just let him have a full season with the roster. Like let him go through the ups and downs, because like I don't know if you remember last year, like they had like a bad week and they're pulling him down to the minors, and that messes with a young hitter. He's only 22, by the way. He's only 22 years old, and they just need to let him cook.
I kind of want to bring this up about that, especially like Jordan Walker. Guy, just exactly what Luke said, man. Like, just if you're already, I think you've already pretty much established to the fans, listen, we're not winning this year because guess what we did in the offseason? Nothing. So you know what? Why are we gonna freaking punish Jordan Walker and say, oh, AAA, AA, single A, whatever, MLB, like wherever you're at, just let him struggle, man. Like your team is already struggling. Like you guys are already in a downhill spiral, and this is another kind of negative I have about this team. Luke, real quick, about about the two teams we talked about previously, the Pirates and the Reds. What was something that both of their rotations had in common?
Star power at the top.
Star power at the top, and then the point I'm also trying to get to is age. Young guys that with a lot of potential. And you look at their rotation, it's 35-year-old Sonny Gray. It's 32-year-old Eric Fetty. It's 36-year-old Mike Michaelis. and it's 34-year-old Steven Matz. Like, there's just nothing really to write home about right now. There's nothing to be excited about. Like, these are just some old veterans that it's like they threw a bunch of 3 and 4s in a rotation, honestly, like besides Sonny Gray. And I don't know, man. I just don't see anything to be excited about, especially on the pitching side. I think offensively they have some bright spots, but it's like a weird mix of old and young guys on this roster, and I don't like it.
They just need to do a full overhaul and just commit to the rebuild, which is crazy because like Cardinals have been decent to good my entire life. Like I've never seen a bad Cardinals team ever. Like, so this is gonna be an interesting era of my life of Cardinals baseball. But like, I don't be one of those teams. Like, this is an example of like the Chicago Bulls, like, or like always in the play-in, but they never get a top seed. Like they're always in the 10 seed. Like
still making moves for like DeMar DeRozan for like
they're still doing like, don't do this. Fully commit to the rebuild.
Just get rid of everyone and go young. I agree. Like, completely agree.
And it's like you have the star talent and you don't have the prospects. You don't have like they have. Let me pull up the Cardinals right now. They have 3 guys in the top 100, and one of them was just drafted. And JJ Weatherholt, which is I'm excited for him. He's gonna be here probably next season. That's what's saying projected wise. But they don't really have a lot of depth in this prospect and like in this like farm system, and they really need a decent farm system. So I think they're gonna do a total overhaul.
Let me ask you something though.
All right.
Sorry to cut you off. Like you said about the overhaul, like just a lot of their names. I think like Ryan Helsley's obviously probably gonna have to go. And I think Sonny Gray, if they didn't give him a no trade clause, I don't know why they would stupidly give Sonny Gray of all people a no trade clause. Like, he's probably not going anywhere. But I think the big name, and honestly, I'm even surprised that we're breaking down the Cardinals and he's on this team and he's not wearing a New York Yankee uniform right now. Nolan Arenado. Like, what are they gonna do with him though? Like, they're gonna have to eat the contract, or at least some of it. No one's gonna want that contract. Arenado, I think he's still a very viable player. Like, I think he can still go out and do the damn thing, but his offensive stats are taking a hit. Hell, even his defensive stats are taking a hit.
Yeah.
He's not the same Nolan Arenado, but I think he's still valuable, right? Like, they got to be able to get something done here.
Yeah, name alone will give him value because he's just been one of the best third basemen in his entire career, and he still plays a good defense. He kind of really screwed himself over this offseason. He had a chance to go to the Astros. They had a whole trade lined up for him, and he said no. And then now he's stuck here in St. Louis still, and he could have had a chance to compete in Houston. Yeah. And it just lowering your options. And I get like you're at this stage of your career, you want to compete, but like that was your best chance to compete. You're not gonna do anything on this team. I think there's a few guys on this team, like you said, I think they'll be gone. Ryan Helsley, I think he should be able to get them a bag of some prospects. Probably. You know, they only have four closers on that team. I think they need a 5th. But he's a guy definitely to be traded. His contract ends at the end of the season. I wish they traded him earlier. Probably could have gotten more. But you know, they don't want to do anything smart. Brandon Donovan, I think, could be gone. He is a good utility guy. He could fit somewhere on a competitive team. I know the Mariners have been linked to they wanted to get him forever, and I think he'd be a fun gift for somebody. And then it just kind of, I think this depends like who can play well this season. But again, there's not a lot of bright spots in this team, man. This is not a team I'm excited. I'm not gonna see like, oh cool, the Cardinals are on. I'm gonna put on that game. Like, no, This is dead in the water.
Before we move on, I realized we forgot to do this for the Reds. But now that we're here, and I remembered, who's your player to look out for the Cards this year? Who's some guys or one guy that you think could have a breakout?
I mean, it's kind of everyone's pick, I guess. But like Jordan Walker, I think I think if they give him the full year, he's so talented. If they give him a full season, just like I said, let him cook. I think he could maybe get 20 bombs. He'd probably get 20 bombs this year. I mean, his ceiling is like 30, 35, obviously, because if you've seen a picture of him, that dude is gigantic. That is a gigantic human being. But I think he's my breakout pick this season.
Yeah.
What about you?
My breakout, I'm going to take a different approach. I'm going to go with Nolan Gorman. I think Nolan Gorman has proven himself at the major league level more than Jordan Walker, but he hasn't been able to like put together like just a dominant year. He had that one year, I want to say 23, where he was actually pretty good. Last year, big step back. And the main thing for this guy is just it seems to be like a lot of these power hitters, they just struggle so much with their strikeouts and being able to put the ball in play and work good at bats. A lot of the time, that's just going to come with developing, seeing more pitching, being in the MLB longer. I think he hit 19 last year. I could see a 30 home run year, especially if they make a lot of moves to this lineup and he's like their cleanup hitter at some point.
Yeah, he got 27 and 23, so he could definitely get 30. Yeah, I want to see. I'm curious, what did Jordan Walker did he? Because I don't think he played even enough games to be able to do anything.
I think he had like 5 bombs. I want to say something like that.
5 bombs. He only played in 84 games.
5 bombs in 84 games, though, man. That's
I mean, I know, but like again, like you don't get any sort of rhythm. It's like all rhythm based. But also, I want to look. Wait, that was his.
I think he's in his head mentally, though. I think Jordan Walker.
Yeah, I mean, but of course, like you're going to if you just keep like every time you have a bad performance, you're like getting sent down. And you're like, oh, okay, I can't mess up anymore, or I'm gonna get sent down. Like
pressing.
It's kind of hard to go into the ballpark every day with that mentality, like with a rain cloud over your head. Like it's not good. But hopefully this year, let him cook.
Let him cook. That is our message to the St. Louis Cardinals. Just let Jordan Walker do his thing. You guys are gonna suck anyways. Sorry, Cardinal fans. Cover your ears if you made it this far. Moving along. Now we're getting to the meat of this division, Luke. Getting to the meat of this division. The second place team that we're going to be discussing today is the Chicago Cubbies. And I'm excited that they're this far up because they had, Luke, a very, very active offseason. Like, probably, I would argue a top 3 to 5 offseason in the entire league. They made a lot of moves. They finished 83 and 79 last year, tied for second place with the Cardinals. In the offseason, they made moves. The big move, they brought in Kyle Tucker, one of the best hitters in the sport. They brought in Matthew Boyd on a 2-year deal. They traded for Ryan Presley, who's been a lockdown closer. They also traded for Eli Morgan, who's been a very solid reliever. They signed Carson Kelly as depth on a 2-year deal. They also brought in Justin Turner on depth on a 1-year deal. They signed Ryan Brazier. They brought in Colin Rea. They also brought in John Birdie. They also made other just transactional depth moves. And subtraction-wise, they didn't lose that much. Compared to what they brought in, it was a great offseason. They lost Cody Bellinger. They lost Kyle Hendricks. They lost Mike Tauchman. They lost Jorge Lopez, Isaac Paredes, and Hayden Wesneski. But I think, obviously, the first thing that comes to mind, Kyle Tucker, man. They went out and they brought in kind of a star. It seems like they've been kind of talking about bringing in a star for a while now. Granted, it is only 1 year, and they lost Wesneski, who they were high on. But if Kyle Tucker can do what he did last year in just 78 games, he had like 22, 23 homers. His WAR was like in the 4s or 5s, and he didn't play half a season. Like, amazing. And I love the depth. Yeah. I think that's kind of been a big problem for them is they just never have depth. Like, bringing in Vidal Brujan and Justin Turner, and like those are winning moves.
Yeah, and like you said, like a lineup is so much better when you're able to have a star like him, like Kyle Tucker, in your lineup. Like, yeah, it was ridiculous. He's like a 5-tool player. He's gonna play great defense. He's gonna get on base. He's gonna steal bags. He's gonna hit for power. This dude is one of the best hitters in baseball. I remember before this trade happened, I think you were talking about Kyle Tucker in general. Because I think they were talking about him being moved, and I was like, he's a top 10 hitter. And you're like, no, he's not.
I wasn't aware, man. I wasn't aware.
You weren't aware of how good he is. I've as a Mariners fan, I played him all the time, and he's at Houston. That dude is a really good player, and that lineup is going to be fun. I like they have like Ian Happ, one of the best left fielders in baseball. Seiya Suzuki, again, one of the best DHs. Also, he can steal bags too. He can't play defense to save his life, but Michael Busch, former Dodger, he had a really good year last year. He hit 20 bombs. He's like, I'm excited for him to what another year there could do for him. And then again, like you're the best middle infield defensively, I think, in baseball. Dansby Swanson and Nico Horner, like that is a good duo. Like they're not going to be the best offensively, but this year they don't have to carry. Like I remember like last year they were hitting 2 and 3 in the lineup or something like that. Like they don't got to do that. They could be 5 and 6 where they belong. And then speaking of great defense at the middle, Pete Crow Armstrong could be the best defensive center fielder in baseball. He's just ridiculous out there, and he's gonna steal 1 million bags. And he's got to be a decent. He's at a league. He's gonna like league average offense. Give me 100 WRC plus. Give me 95. You're gonna be one of the best players in baseball. Maybe not best, but you're gonna be a really good center fielder. And then a guy, my pick this year, I think he needs to be a great player. My breakout candidate this year, Matt Shaw. That dude is gonna be ridiculous for them.
Big Matt Shaw guy.
Dude, not even that. I just want to shout out the Cubs farm system. They have a top 5 farm system. They have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. They have 7 guys in the top 100, and a lot of them are going to be here this year to help them out. And they were able to trade for Kyle Tucker and got rid of a guy like Cam Smith, and they're able to supply that right. It'd still be one of the top farm systems in baseball, and being able to do that is just like really good on the front office for them. And at the deadline, let's see what they can do. Maybe they go get somebody else to add to this team. So
right, I really like the moves. Obviously, they made. Big thing was depth for me. They'd go out and do that, and I think right now, my biggest concern with the lineup is like not to be like a negative freaking Nancy over here, dude, but I'm gonna be a negative Nancy. My biggest concern with the lineup is I'm just not a fan of the way it's constructed. Like. I feel like that, like having like Nico Horner and Swanson as your 5 and 6, like those guys are not necessarily the monster guys that you normally see in those type of spots in the order. To me, those guys either seem like 1-2 guys or 8-9 guys, and they're kind of in that middle. They're in that middle. I like Hap, I like Tucker, I like Seiya, I like Bush, but then after that, man, I think there's just a lot of question marks in that offense, and
yeah.
That's probably my only negative. And granted, they could still go out and make a move at the deadline. Who's to say they can't? I think with the division being as weak as it is, I wouldn't say weak, but it's just there's not a lot of top-heavy teams in this division.
Yeah.
They could still be competing for a division championship with the roster they have right now. But I just feel like they're missing something in that lineup. I don't know. What do you think about it?
I definitely do agree that, like, they do have a lot of more question marks, a lot of younger guys like a Pico Armstrong and a Matt Shaw. Like you're putting a lot of them for the, like, hopefully that they can produce, especially because you get a guy like Kyle Tucker where it's his last year on the deal. Like you're putting your chips in for this year. Like this is your year. Like, hey, like this is a message to the team. Like this is our year to win the World Series, and you got to be able to do that. And it sucks when you're like that, and then the back end of your lineup is kind of like whatever. But then also like. I think I believe in them enough to be at least league average hitters where it's fine. Like
okay, yeah,
like they're 1 through 5, like 1 through 4-ish is like one of the better lineups, I think. Just be able to produce, and we even talked about it, like I really like this pitching staff that they have.
Yeah,
like I think like we talked about it earlier in last episode with the Rockies. Like playing into your ballpark is important, and playing here where it's those. That outfield is far out there, and it really gives a lot of leeway for those pitchers. Like, yeah. I really like Shota. Like, he had a really good year last year, and I think he's going to be able to reproduce that again. And then Justin Steele
as well.
He had a pretty good year last year. The year before was really good for him. And then you get a guy like Matthew Boyd, who he was injured last year, but when he was there the year before, like he looked pretty good.
And Matthew Boyd was really good in the playoffs last year. Like, I think that's very not talked about. Like, he was really good for the Guardians.
Mm-hmm. And then just that bullpen, like Ryan Presley, Porter Hodge, like those being your 9 and 8 inning guys, like that's a pretty good bullpen. And then just like the guy you said earlier, what did you say that they got? What was it?
Well, I like Brazier.
Who's the guy that they got from the Guardians?
Eli Morgan.
Eli Morgan, like another guy like him in that like bullpen, like with that defense, like like playing in that ballpark. And then having one of the best up the middle defenses like in baseball, like I think they collectively probably do with a guy like Pico Armstrong, Dansby, and Nico. Like that's gonna help your pitching staff out a lot. And I think they're gonna have a big year this year collectively.
I'm really high on their bullpen. I think their rotation is, I would say it's pretty top heavy, but granted, like Tyone, he's been in the league for a while and he's actually coming off a pretty good year. He had a sub 4 ERA last year, not bad. Colin Ray is kind of the guy in that fit spot where I'm kind of like, I don't know, man. I feel like the name could be better. But like we said, I think this is a prime team to look out for at the deadline. I think maybe a Michael 100%. King, bro. Maybe like a Dylan Cease. Like maybe they just go out all in, right? And I think that this team is lacking maybe 1 or 2 more arms and another big bopper in that lineup.
Yeah.
And despite that, they're still going to be competitive. I could see this team being like in the playoffs this year And that will almost fire their front office up more to make the moves that I think they need to make next offseason, maybe.
Yeah.
I think their window is kind of slim considering Kyle Tucker's on a 1-year deal, but we'll see how it plays out. For all we know, Kyle Tucker could fall in love with the city of Chicago, and he'll be their franchise player for years to come. So the Cubbies, we're pretty much, if you haven't noticed the trend right now, we're happy with you guys if you go out and make moves. Just go out and make moves. Like, show you care. And if some of these guys like Armstrong and Shaw and Horner and Swanson are all league average hitters, and Kyle Tucker and Ian Happ and Seiya Suzuki, just they step up and they take the reins of this offense, we could be looking at a scary team. I think that they're very top heavy in their offense and their pitching rotation. But if some of those like middle of the pack guys like Ray, Tyone, they put together solid seasons, like they're gonna be okay. They'll be in the playoffs. They'll be competitive this year.
Yeah.
Yeah. So who's your player to look out for the Cubs before we get to the last team?
Matt Shaw. That's my guy.
Matt Shaw's your guy? Let me see. I'm going to take one more look at this. You know what? My guy to look out for, I don't know.
Kyle Tucker. Okay.
I think just to mix it, Kyle Tucker. Just to mix it up, I think I'll go Pete Crow Armstrong. I feel like he's his bat has been kind of the question mark for him. And at the end of the year last year, he looked a lot better. He looked a lot better offensively. So that's kind of my guy. Now, moving on, Lucas, we've made it to the end of the NL Central. The final team we're going to be talking about is the Milwaukee Brewers. They won the division last year going 93-69. However, is the big thing. It wasn't a very, exciting offseason for them. If anything, it was probably a pretty bad offseason. They brought in Nestor Cortez. They brought in Jose Quintana. They brought in Grant Anderson, Mark Canha, and just a couple other depth pieces. But they lost a lot. They lost a lot, man. They lost Willy Adames. They lost Devin Williams. They lost Frankie Montas. They lost Gary Sanchez, Joe Ross, Hobie Milner, Wade Miley, Colin Ray as well. Yep, the thing with the Cubs is they lost a lot of guys. They lost a lot of pieces, but what their return was a lot better. So it still feels like they improved. The Brewers, I feel like it's the complete opposite. They brought in guys and they lost guys, but what they lost just outweighs what they brought in. I'm not too fond of their offseason, but let me remind everyone, this is the Milwaukee Brewers. This is what they do. This is literally what they do, and they find ways to win the division. So what do you got for their upcoming season, Luke, and kind of previewing what they did last year?
So they do go out and trade Devin Williams. They know that they're not gonna be able to re-sign the guy, and they got some good guys off it. I mean, I know they got Nestor, and then who was the other? I forget who was the other guy that they got in that trade.
Quintana?
I'm trying to look. Caleb Durbin. That he's very much a Brewers guy. Like, I think he's gonna fit well with them. I think he's on Fangraphs right now. He said he's gonna be on the bench, but he's a guy who let me pull up the stats last year. He didn't do anything last year like major leagues, but he did play in the AAA, and he hit 287, 396, 471, 10 homers. Like, he's not gonna be a big power guy, but he can do other things. Like, he had 29 stolen bases, and I think this team last year, or they were second in stolen bases. I think they're going to be first this year. They're going to steal bases more than anyone else in baseball. They're going to put the ball in play. And they still, I know that you lose a guy like Willy Adames, but this lineup still has guys. You have Jackson Churio, who had a great breakout season last year. You have Christian Yelich coming back healthy this year. He's a guy, I think he's going to go back to his old former self. William Contreras, you can argue he's the best catcher in baseball. Garrett Mitchell, he had a good year last year. Rhys Hoskins, he's gonna hit you homer. He's gonna hit bombs, and then you just have the other guys in that lineup who can just hit the ball.
Right.
And that's really all you need for the Brewers, and that's kind of like their identity they're going with this season. It sucks losing a guy like Willy Adames, but this is what the Brewers do. Like you said, they're gonna lose him, but they're gonna bring up guys that are gonna be able to replicate it in a certain in the aggregate, kind of like a Moneyball. Like, they're gonna recreate the guy collectively, and then even then, this pitching staff is pretty good too. I want to point out, Freddie Peralta had a really good year last year.
Yeah, he's a one.
He's a one, and then I don't know. I don't know when Brandon Woodruff is gonna come back. I think he may come back this season.
I want to say he is.
I think so. If he's healthy this season, that's a really good one too. And then just filling in, you have Tobias Harris And then Nestor Cortez, Nestor Cortez didn't have a bad year last year. Like, he had a 3.9 ERA? 3.7. He had a 3.7 ERA. What?
My boy Freddie. Every time. But sorry, Nestor. Sorry. But
sorry.
I kind of want to make this point, and I'm excited to make it. That's how I kind of thought of this on the fly. Out of every lineup we've covered, I feel like the Brewers are the only lineup with an identity. Like, it doesn't look like they just threw a bunch of guys in a lineup and they're just hoping it works. Like, the Brewers, they just have Chourio, stud, Yelich, stud, Contreras, stud, and then it's followed by Mitchell, who has potential to be a stud, a Bopper and Rhys Hoskins, and then guys that just terrorize pitchers from the 6 through 9 hole. They're going to work counts. They're going to smack singles. They're going to foul pitches off. They're going to steal bases. They're going to do all the gritty stuff. And then if that front 6 that they had with Rhys and Mitchell and Yelich and Chourio, they're going. That bottom 6 through 9 just got to get on base and flip the table to them. And that's how lineups should be constructed. You put speed at the top and the bottom, and in the middle you fill it up with guys that mash the ball. And I think the Brewers have perfected that. And maybe their rotation isn't as good as some of the other teams. And hell, maybe even their bullpen isn't even as good.
Bullpen, one of the best in baseball last year. Let me show you the stats. They were second in ERA, third in WHIP, 8 in walks per 9, 20th in Ks. That sucks. But third in hits per 9 and 13 in home runs. I know they lose Devin Williams, but this bullpen is going to be really good. Yeah. Trevor McGill, he's going to be their closer. He's going to be really good this year. They have a bunch of other I don't know the names off the top of my head, but then also but they have some good players in there. And then DL Hall, he was in the trade last year for Corbin Burns. He at the end of the season really good. Like he moved to that closer role because he was a starter. Really, really good. And then I also want to point out he's not in any top 100 prospect range. His name is Craig Yoho.
Yes, I was literally looking him up, bro, because I couldn't remember his last name.
He is so nasty.
Have you seen his clips? Insane.
It's so gross. He's Devin Williams 2.0, and I think he's going to be up this year, I hope. Like, they lost.
Just talk about how good his name is, by the way.
That's
also
a great name, Craig Yoho.
Great name.
But they lose Devin Williams. But of course, I said the Brewers, they're gonna get another Devin Williams. Or
They
Craig
just
Yoho.
find ways to win, man. They're just so good at that. Like, good on that. They're kind of like the National League version of the Rays. Like, they just go out and they don't spend money, and they just they're decent. Like, they're always pretty competitive.
Their prospects are one of the best too in baseball. Like, they have a good farm system. So that's what they do.
I'm excited, man. I think that the way that their team is constructed is just, it's their identity. You know, it literally, like, I already made this point, but I want to emphasize it. It doesn't feel like they just threw a bunch of names together and they're like, all right, let's hope it works. It's like they built their lineup and their rotation and their bullpen a certain way because that's how they play the game. I love that. I think that's why they're so competitive. And having a coach, their head coach, I think I want to say Pat's his first name, but Murphy's his last name for sure.
Pat Murphy, yeah.
Pat Murphy. Guy, everyone counted him out last year, and they led him to one of their best finishes that the team had seen. So I'm excited for him. I think that he has a good control of what's going on over there. So, Lucas, we've said our takes on everyone. Before we move on to our predictions, who's one player you're excited for and think will break out for the Milwaukee Brewers?
Well, I said Craig Yoho. I think that's the guy. I think he's gonna be dominant this year. I think that's my guy. But if he doesn't come up, because I don't know specifics of when he's gonna be up and everything. Like, I don't know if he's gonna be the full year. If not, I think a guy like a Caleb Durbin. I think he's finally gonna get the opportunity to play, and I think he's gonna execute his role super well. And I'm excited to see what he can do.
I like that a lot. Someone I'm picking for this one, I'm picking my boy Bryce Terang. Bryce Terang had a 4.7 WAR last year. He wasn't even that good with the bat. He stole 50 bases. He plays lights out defense. And in the playoffs, I just when I was watching that series against the Mets, it felt like that guy was all over the field. Like, it's awesome, man. Having a guy like that, I think he's going to put together a nice full season. I'm excited for them. And they got a lot of potential. Like, Jackson Chourio's a star. But we made it to prediction time, Luke. This is my favorite part. We're going to go from 5 to 1. We're each going to say who we think. Last time when we did the NOS, we had the same picks, but I think this time we're going to have different. It's going to be different.
This is why I was the most excited for this division, because I think you and me are going to have the different answers. Except for maybe 5. I think it's only the same thing we're going to have. But
all right, bro. Who's your 5 then?
Love the Pirates, but they're going to be my number 5 team, I think.
Pirates.
But yeah.
Ooh. I'm gonna go with the Cardinals at 5. Actually,
Cardinals.
I don't know, man. That freaking infirmary nursery home they have in their rotation right now just doesn't excite me. Like, I don't think they're.
Yeah, I think so too. But then also they're the Cardinals, and they're gonna somehow find a way to win like 80 games because that's what
also true.
This is what they're gonna do. Like, I think the Pirates will be just behind them. I wouldn't be surprised like if it was flipped and the Cardinals are 5th and the Pirates are 4th, but
right.
If you couldn't tell, my number 4 team is the Cardinals. I think they're going to be right there with the Pirates, just like
my number 4, Pittsburgh Pirates. So we just had those interchanged. I want them to be good, and I think their rotation can only carry them so far. Poor Paul Skeens. If you guys aren't gonna bring in anyone for him or even give him an extension, please stop letting him suffer there. Like, I'm sorry. I just had to say that. Get that off my chest.
Yeah.
Number 3, I think this is where we can start seeing a lot of mix-up right here. So I'm excited to hear who you got. Who do you have at 3rd place for the NL Central?
Number 3, the Chicago Cubs are my number 3 team.
Ooh,
I think they're gonna. I think, like, of course, I like what they did with this team and everything, but I don't. I just think this team, the 2 teams I like ahead of them are gonna be better, and I just think the Cubs are just one of those teams. Like the way they like ended the season last year, where they should have made the playoffs and then just fell short. They lost like 1 million games. I think they just have something like that again, where they just like they get the 3rd spot in the division.
That threw me for a loop because you'll see why it throws me for a loop.
Yeah.
But my number 3 team, Cincinnati Reds. That's my team at number 3. I just feel like their lineup's missing something. I think their rotation has all the potential in the world, and I think they're a year or 2 away from being really, really competitive and being a real threat. With that being said, I think they'll go over 500 this year. I like them to do that. 83, 84 wins. I could see that for them.
Yeah,
all right.
My number 2 team, the Cincinnati Reds. I think the Cincinnati Reds will be the 2nd best team in this division. I think they're going to be way better this year. I think they're going to get 85 to 87 wins. I think they're going to make the playoffs. I really am excited for this team. I think they're going to be really good. And I've already explained it when I was talking about them earlier, but that's my number 2 team.
My number 2 team, this is crazy. Like, I feel like our list is so different. It's gonna be a little bit of a bolder take, but I'm picking the Brewers. I'm picking the Brewers. I think that they've done it for so long, and I know their team just like it fits their identity so well. But I almost just feel like there's gonna be something special about my number 1 team this year that I'm gonna rock with them.
Well, we already know my number 1 team, the Milwaukee Brewers. I know you said they do it every year, and they do it every year for a reason. Rain or shine, the Brewers will finish number 1 in that division. Like, that's their division. And I just think the way they're structured and just the way, like, such good culture, and just every year they're gonna go out and they're gonna dominate. And I think it just they have magic there. They have magic in Milwaukee, and I think
they find ways.
I think you, until they don't do it, you can't not put them at 1 for me. Like, you have to give me a year where they don't do it.
I agree.
And I'll do it. Like, prove it to me that
they have to prove to you otherwise. I like that. Actually, that's a good point. My number 1 team, Chicago Cubs. Reason for this, I think their bullpen is really good. I think that they've committed to winning, and I think you get rewarded when you do the right things. Their offense, I don't really like the way it's constructed. I won't lie. But with that being said, they still have a lot of good names in there that I think they'll still be able to produce runs. And their rotation, really top heavy, but I like Shota. I like Steele. I like those guys. And I'm also banking on them to have a good deadline. Like, that's a big reasoning to why I picked them at 1. I mean, it could bite me. I think that the Cubs could end up in freaking 4th place for all I know.
No, I don't like. I think I'm probably
gonna get.
I think I'm gonna get burned with them at 3, but I think I like Gaelics. I love them. I want to reward them for having a good offseason. I think they're gonna go get some at the deadline because I have a bunch of prospects. But again, I don't know. I just think, like, I don't know. I know I'm a numbers guy, and I just this whole podcast, every podcast episode I do, I read you stats and everything, but like based off aura, okay, the Cubs aura is smelling me third place. Okay, I don't know, like
I like I you know what's crazy? I'm going like the opposite approach. I think their aura smells like a competitive, gritty team that
I just
like their fans, like everything, like Dansby with the beautiful flowing hair and that Wrigley wind. Like they're just gonna be like.
I just think I like a weird inkly feeling that like they're gonna disappoint. They're gonna get some injuries. Something's gonna happen. That's just my like weird feeling of baseball that I have. I'm like,
yeah,
God, like I want to reward them. I want to be like you're gonna win the division, but I have like a feeling that they're gonna end up like falling short. I think they're like last year's Reds. Well, not even because their talent is way different, but like everyone was high on the Reds. Like, dude, this is their year, and then they fall short. I think this is what happens to the Cubs this year again, falling short. And especially the NL is so good. Like if they were a team in the AL. I think they get a wild card spot, 100%. But being in the NL, I don't think they make it.
I mean, this is the beauty about baseball, man. We just gotta wait and see. Lucas, great episode, man. We talked ball. We broke down every team. Everyone, be looking out for our next part where we're gonna be talking about the NL East. We're gonna be finishing up the NL and then moving on to the American League. We're almost at opening day. This was a good episode, Luke. I'm excited. Anything you want to leave the people before we end up?
You need to look up Craig Yoho's highlights right now.
Craig Yoho,
because like you said, great name, and I need you to look at it and be like, okay, I understand why you said that now. Baller.
I just want to say this: they gotta have like a Pirates of the Caribbean Craig Yoho kind of inspired night, bro. That's good. Like I just think of the song every time I hear his name.
Yo.
All right, guys. Thank you guys for watching. Catch us in the next one.
Peace.